I'm Heather Bustos, and welcome to the Quarterly Regulatory Recap, part of the Reg Report, a newsletter brought to you by Bustos Law Group, Compliance Counsel for Brands on a Mission. So this past quarter was a very interesting one in terms of FDA related news that came out. So first, we're going to talk about a really interesting one in medical device news. Elon Musk's brain chip startup, it's called Neuralink, has gotten this breakthrough device designation. And what that does is it allows for certain devices that can provide treatment or diagnosis of life-threatening conditions. It allows the company to speed up development, and it allows the FDA to review devices currently under development. So it's a pathway that is used for, again, certain specific diagnoses of life-threatening conditions. So in cosmetics news, and the reason it's cosmetic news is because sunscreens, even though on their own are not considered cosmetics, a lot of cosmetic companies have SPF in their products, which does make them an over-the-counter drug. So in cosmetic news, FDA is now weighing approval of its first new sunscreen ingredient in decades. And the question is, why is it in decades? Well, during 2020, Congress passed the CARES Act, which was directly related to coronavirus relief. However, they also snuck in some pieces of that legislation that focused on FDA and how FDA regulates. And one of the things that it actually changed was some things about the OTC monograph system. So the over-the-counter drug monograph system is essentially almost like a recipe book. That's how I like to think of it. So the FDA, instead of approving every over-the-counter drug that goes in the market, they essentially give guidelines to industry and say, you know, you have to have these specific active ingredients in these specific percentages, you have to label it this way, and if you do all of these things, you can bring your product to market without getting FDA approval. Well, the problem was that these monographs were created over time by the agency, and they would just take so much time to update, and there's so many of them, right? So what the FDA did to try to streamline the OTC process is now they've opened it up to industry to essentially pay a fee, provide their documentation, substantiation of safety and effectiveness of specific ingredients, and they can actually petition to change the monographs. And the beauty of this is, who better to do this than industry, who already knows a lot of these ingredients. In the case of this specific ingredient that we're talking about in sunscreen, this is an ingredient that's already been used in many other countries worldwide for over 20 years. So there's got to be a ton of substantiation for the safety of this ingredient. So hopefully it will go through this process and get approved. And the beauty is that once it gets approved, it actually becomes part of the monograph. And when that's the case, then anyone who wants to come out with a sunscreen can now create a sunscreen around this new active ingredient. This allows for more innovation, and essentially it allows for these monographs to then expand as long as there's good evidence of their safety and efficacy. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't really seen, at least maybe I haven't been looking, haven't really seen what's happened using this new pathway yet. It is really expensive for industry to do, and of course they know that once they file this petition, other businesses can go and use that to piggyback off of, right? So a lot of companies are not willing to do that. And so I haven't seen a ton of use of this yet, so it'll be really interesting to watch development of this petition and see what happens. All right, so in food news, which this isn't necessarily FDA related, but it's really cool news, and I think it's great for any of my clients who are maybe in the startup or kind of mid-growth that are trying to possibly be acquired. The company that makes grain-free tortilla chips called Siete, I don't know if you've tried them. I think they're amazing. I've tried a bunch of their products. They're really, really good. They've just been acquired for $1.2 billion by Pepsi. I mean, what better situation could you be in terms of being acquired? So this company was founded in 2014 by Veronica Garza. And basically, she set out to create these grain-free tortillas, and then it's gone into chips, and it's gone into they've got tons of different things. They've got taco shells, salsas, seasonings, massive portfolio. And so basically, this was just purchased by PepsiCo. Pepsi has not made an acquisition of food in about 5 years. So this was a really big deal. And on top of that, you know, it's expanding their healthier food options. So I think it's a win-win. This is a really awesome news, and it's, you know, gives a lot of hope to startups that like you can grow a company. I mean, this company's 10 years old and they're being acquired by Pepsi. That's pretty impressive. So yeah, I thought I would share that good news. In dietary supplement news, so if anybody here is in the supplement industry, you may have heard that the FDA actually was having some issues with supplements that contain toxic yellow oleander. And so they've actually now expanded the list of supplements containing that. I've been getting the updates from FDA for, oh man, it's been at least 6 months, I would say. And this has just been like expanding and expanding. This is obviously a case of contamination. And what's happened is, it's an ingredient that is then used in other products. And so that contamination spreads. For dietary supplements, it is a requirement that you test your raw materials, that you test them for identity, that you test them for microbiological contamination. And unfortunately, either it was missed in the testing or people are not testing, but essentially this could be very dangerous for consumers. And so FDA has been really monitoring this, and I'm sure we'll continue monitoring it. And finally, this is not specific to any practice area, but the FDA has a massive backlog of inspections as staffers leave for private sector jobs. So if you've dealt with FDA at all, you would know that FDA is very short-staffed, and it has been, especially since 2020, since COVID, they've lost a lot of people. And so what's happening right now is that there is a shortage of workers to go and do audits. So factory inspections are kind of behind. Data shows that agency staffers have not returned to roughly 2,000 pharmaceutical manufacturing firms to conduct surveillance inspections since before the pandemic. So that means that there, are possible contaminations that are continuing within drug manufacturing facilities that have not been checked by the agency. Doesn't mean necessarily that has to be the case, but it could be. It definitely could be. As we saw with the baby formula shortage, when FDA is not able to do their job and do what's within their power, it can end with really, really poor results. So hoping that they can backfill these jobs just for the sake of consumers and making sure that factories are being audited the way that they should be. Thank you so much for watching this quarterly regulatory recap. It is now October of 2024, so we just went over some of the stories from this last quarter, and in January we'll be reviewing everything that happens from now till Christmas. So until next time, in that time, I hope you have a happy holiday. Enjoy it with your family and your friends, and we'll be seeing you in our next quarterly regulatory recap. Thanks so much.